Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for our next team season preview. And this team we're doing today is the San Francisco 49ers. And for part one, as you can see with me, I've got two returning guests, both from the Third and On podcast. With us today is Niners fans Phyll and Oli. Guys, how the devil are you?
I'm good, thank you, Andy. Thank you for having me on again. It's always a pleasure coming on. And I'm excited for the NFL season to finally come out and start.
Well, we've got a new guest coming on here. Phil's been joined by his cat. For those who are watching,
it's my Tilly. She's she gets FOMO, serious FOMO. She's like, "Why are you not paying attention to me?" Also, Andy, I've just realised that you also use the how the devil are you? Because I've only just noticed like Shane does that as well, and I thought that was a Shaneism, but I reckon he might have stole it from you because I don't know how much originality Shano actually has. But like, yeah, I'm really good. It's been very overcast today. In terms of like how everything's going across the country. I mean, I've got like friends and family that have been like slap bang in the middle, not involved in the riot, but been in the area where the riots have been going on. And it's actually just quite upsetting because it's actually changed a lot of my plans for what I was going to do the weekend. I was actually going to go up the north to go see some friends and family because I've had to like postpone it a couple of times, but because of all the intermediate kind of like troubles that's going on up in the Midlands and the Northeast, I've had to cancel my plans again. So it's actually quite nice to talk about something that has nothing to do with our country and just a little bit of escapism, talking about like the NFL instead of talking about the doom and gloom of being in Great Britain in 2024.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's a horrible time at the moment for the UK, and I'm hoping that this podcast will lift a lot of spirits, not just for you two, but for anyone who's watching this podcast or listening. I'm hoping it can bring some sort of positiveness, and especially with the team as good as the Niners, it should hopefully give some Niners fans in the UK a bit of hope going into the season. Speaking of which, looking at the off-season, the ins and outs, so main outs would be the likes of Randy Gregory, Chase Young, Sam Darnold, Javon Kinlaw, Sebastian Joseph Day, Cleveland Fell, Aaron Compton, and Isaiah Oliver. And then the main ins include the likes of Yatur Gross-Matos, Leonard Floyd, Josh Dobbs, Rocky Sin, Jordan Elliott, Chris Hubbard, Logan Thomas, as well as the re-signing of Juwan Jennings, and the draft picks of Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver, 31st overall, Ronaldo Green, cornerback, 64th overall, and Dominic Pooney, offensive tackle, 86th overall, just to name a few. Overall, boys, I'll go to you first, Ollie. Your thoughts on your team's off-season as a whole?
Well, I think you've missed out the biggest story of this off-season, and that is the potential trade now of Brandon Aiyuk.
Well, that's what I'm doing next, so we'll go to that now.
Out.
I mean, there's two potential outs. I mean, you got the whole Aiyuk situation as well as Trent Williams holding out, or has been for a few weeks. Aiyuk has been, I think, a great part of your offense, and I think losing him would be, and he's getting better each year, seemingly. He is getting better stats-wise as well. I think it would be an awful shame if he was to leave, because that would be just a huge part of your offense gone.
Well, the Trent Williams things, I think, will sort itself out once the Aiyuk thing has played out, because I think we're holding off giving Trent Williams more money because we want to know where our salary cap is once Aiyuk's sorted. I actually do think Aiyuk is going to stay because I think he wanted to go to either Pittsburgh or Washington, and neither of them have the capital to go get him. So I don't think he is going to leave. But whether he signs a new deal is something completely different. I'm not sure what Phil's opinion is on it, but I think he will stay.
Well, those of you who are watching this podcast on YouTube or listening on podcasts, we are recording it at 6:15 on Wednesday, August 7th. So this podcast could be released, and there could be some news that comes out from the time we record this to when it's released. So if you are listening to this podcast and something has happened, that is why we haven't mentioned any potential trade or staying or whatever happens with him. Phyll, do you share the
So I've been like, because when you sent me like the rundown of what we're going to talk about today, and I did like just a little bit of because I mean, if you listen to our podcast and you've been on our podcast before as well, Andy, like I love just NFL history, like in terms of not just like playing, but players, but careers, but also how front offices actually work. And John Lynch, since becoming the 49ers general manager, and I don't know if you agree with me, baby, but in terms of like postseason, preseason, he has an horrendous record of getting key contracts done. I.e., he dragged out Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel held out, and it was detrimental to the start of his season. He did the same thing happened with Bosa last year. Bosa held out. It was detrimental to Bosa at the start of the season. And he is the master of in-season trades and in-season workings. I can't knock him for that because every trade deadline, the 49ers get their hands on some absolute capital and do really, really well from it. But like the off season, it's almost like any time that it comes to like crunch time contracts, he goes on like a holiday or he just puts his feet up. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of urgency. And I am kind of like done with the whole saga now. I mean, you think he's going to stay, baby. I think he's now going to go. If we lost him, it will be detrimental to a degree to our offense, but our offense has some absolute show-stopping superstars. We've got obviously the reigning offensive MVP, Christian McCaffrey. We'll talk about it in a wee bit. We've got Kittle, we've got Deebo, we've got Jawan. From what I hear, Ricky Purcell is kind of like impressing a lot of people as well. And I think he was drafted as Brandon Aiyuk's replacement. Good receivers are like a dime a dozen at the moment, in terms of like the draft. They're very low cost, and if you don't rate them after a couple of years, you can move them on. The 49ers very rarely, with the exception of Deebo, lock down their wide receivers. They kind of let them go. I.e., I think next year we'll probably let Jawan go. We let Kendrick Bourne go. We just have this habit of just letting them down instead of like paying ridiculous amount of money for them. So with Brandon Aiyuk going, yes, to any other offense, it would be potentially detrimental, but I don't think that would stop the 49ers because Kyle Shanahan, as long as Kyle Shanahan has a quarterback that he believes in, I think that offense will be powerful anyway.
And can I just quickly add on to that? The main trade I've seen is with the Browns, where we're getting Amari Cooper and a second-round pick. So Amari Cooper isn't exactly a bad wide receiver. So although, no, he's not as good as Brandon Aiyuk, in my opinion, he's still a good WR2 to put behind Deebo, and with Kittle, McCaffrey, and people like that, I think it still could be a very, very good offense.
Yeah, and don't forget, we've got like Jawan, we've got Latu as well. Again, I've been hearing really good things about him in preseason, the tight end that missed out last year because of like injury. I've heard some really, really good stuff about him, almost being like the heir apparent to taking off some of the load off of Kittle, because a lot of these players that we had, we were playing them like, for our injuries. Kittle was beat up last year. Deebo missed a good portion of the season out. So I think,
Purdy.
Purdy as well. I mean, I think I'd be surprised if Dobbs, he probably will get signed as like, QB2. But the other 49er that like has been playing like in the quarterback position, I can't remember his name. I sent it to you yesterday, baby.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. It's
because I sent you a play that he did, and apparently again the buzz is looking that he looks quite good anyway. So I think as long as Kyle has a quarterback that he trusts to deliver the playbook, I think the 49ers will be fine with whoever they jot in. But like, I don't see, John Lynch and Kyle overpaying. Like, I don't. They had the opportunity to lock Brandon Aiyuk down. Brandon kind of like tried to call their bluff, and they're kind of like in this stalemate. So whether or not he stays or he goes, if he stays, fantastic. I don't need to burn the jersey that I bought for my birthday last year. But if he moves on, it happens in football. It just happens.
I think as we saw with Juwan Jennings, his performance in the Super Bowl alone shows that he can be a key part of your offense. He threw for a touchdown pass as well. It was really could have easily been Super Bowl MVP if he'd won that game. And I keep telling you, Phil, stop calling me baby in public. That's behind scenes. I've got to ask, we mentioned McCaffrey before. Now, you guys did an episode on your podcast about the Madden Curse. Now, McCaffrey is, of course, the Madden 25 cover athlete. Now, today, it's been announced that you will lose McCaffrey for the preseason, suffering a calf strain. Obviously, preseason games, a lot of big players don't often play any sort of preseason snaps. But does that worry you that seemingly, just a few weeks after a guy who came from the Panthers, avoided injury, or came to from the Panthers, I should say, with all these injury problems, because that's why you probably got a steal for him, not giving him much draft capital to get him. He's avoided injury the entire time he's been in the Niners, pretty much. And within a month of being announced on the Madden cover, he gets a calf strain. So does that worry you in terms of a guy who's had previous injury problems in the past with the Panthers? That would be him potentially.
Go first, baby.
Season.
Okay, well, I bang the drum on the podcast a lot, saying that preseason games are irrelevant, and I still believe that. So losing a player who's as dedicated and as experienced as McCaffrey for the preseason, I don't think is an issue in itself. But knowing he's had issue with his calves before could be an issue. So, do I think the Madden Curse thing? No.
We did an episode where I went through every cover start. The Madden Curse is real.
I wasn't on that episode, and I have listened to it, and I just think it's a coincidence. But I might rethink that if McCaffrey gets injured a lot this season.
Do you know what? I'm actually a big sort of curse believer. I was big on the Yaya Toure curse. I'm still big on the Benfica one, and I do believe the Madden Curse is real. Now, I think, obviously, like many curses, there's certain players that avoid it. But I loved what Keg said on the podcast when he came on yours, the fact that Antonio Brown has just completely taken on the curse for everyone else in recent times. And I think there's been a lot of players. Again, it is more of an old thing. There hasn't been many players really, again, since Brown that have really done it. But at the same time, I do feel like, it could be coincidence, but I do feel as well like it's almost sometimes the pressure of having that on your back. Sometimes I think the mentality of it I do still sometimes that mentality of having that pressure of being the athlete can somehow cause something like this. I don't know. That could be a completely terrible take, but I do believe that it's these teams had. You got a Super Bowl last time in Miami. What happened the following year? A very injury hit season. So I think it's definitely a worry. But I think if it's just pre-season misses and he plays week 1 again, I think he'll be absolutely fine because what he's done in the last season is amazing.
I watched him on the NFL Network yesterday, and he looked quite calm. He looked quite relaxed. I mean, he let slip. I don't know if you saw it, baby, but when he referred to Aiyuk as a former teammate, and we're like, oh, he probably should have said that, because then he then corrected himself and said our current teammate. Look, Christian McCaffrey is pound for pound. I think. I mean, I know Tyreek Hill won, got the number 1 NFL player, but I think Christian McCaffrey is the best non-quarterback player in the NFL, and he's reigning offensive MVP. He is the 49ers' number 1 weapon. And I just think, he's had injuries in the past. Father Time, will remain undefeated, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Kyle Shanahan and the front office and the coaching staff literally just wrap him up in bubble wrap. Just be like, don't do anything, don't go out, don't do anything crazy, and we'll let you out when we play the Jets week 1. Like, that's literally how I see it. Him missing out, on preseason. I mean, he's not the only one that will miss out on the 3 games. Preseason anyways, I always believe that preseason is, just to give your second and third stringers a little bit of rep time just to see whether or not they can actually hit that 53-man squad. So it's not really going to bother me, him not being in, but I think the 49ers just need to keep him safe and prepared. Like, if he gets injured during the season, okay, we do have backups. Obviously, you're not going to get a like-for-like backup, but, the 49ers offense, that West Coast run game, Kyle's, made very, very average, broken down running backs look like superstars. He just happens to have the best running back who has become the best of the bunch in the league. So it's losing him for preseason doesn't really bother me. Losing him in the regular season would obviously have more of an effect.
I agree. And speaking of the regular season, you guys have been one of the best teams over the last 4 or 5 years in the NFL regular season. You combine all those records together, you're probably top of that list. It's probably you or the Chiefs. You have been the best team in the NFC over the last few years, but you haven't quite got over the hump, whether it's you lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship game or whether it is losing twice now in the Super Bowl. This has been, until you win one, it's going to be a constant thing over your head. Shanahan especially, you had it with the Falcons, the 28-3 coordinator. He then goes into the Niners, has double-digit lead against the Chiefs, I believe, both times the first time round. And, it's once again, it's a thing that's going to be always surrounding this team until they do it. So we'll go to you first, Oli.
Sorry, just before you just say that, it's again just going back onto like the history. Again, John Madden, the Oakland Raiders of the 70s. John Madden was the winningest coach in the NFL for a long, long period of time. And he had the best winning record out of the coach over the first 100 games in charge of any organization. And he was criticized throughout the entirety of the 70s of he could never win the big one. He would get to the AFC Championship game beaten by the Dolphins or the Steelers, or he'd get to the Super Bowl and he'd lose to the Cowboys. And he had that huge stigma that haunted him, but also pressed him until, he actually won the Super Bowl, with the Raiders. And then the season after, he then retired because he did it. Kyle Shanahan, I'm not going to literally compare him to this, but I do think Kyle Shanahan is this generation's version of John Madden, where his teams are amazing. Blowing the Super Bowl leads, when it was in Atlanta, you can either argue for and against that he was defensive coordinator, but, being in the Super Bowl twice against the Chiefs and being plays away from winning the Super Bowl, I think when we lost the first time against the Chiefs, I actually put that down more to Jimmy Garoppolo, whilst
I think we all know that one play to Emmanuel Sanders that cost us the game.
Yeah. But then Jimmy Garoppolo threw 2 interceptions consecutively that turned the ball over to the Chiefs. So, and then obviously, the NFC Championship game where we lost to the Rams. Okay, we probably should have won that. And then, losing the NFC Championship game to the Eagles, we probably were out of that because we didn't have a quarterback that wasn't Brock Purdy. But he's in that ilk of he is the best coach in the NFL that hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. He's always going to be behind your Andy Reid's, because Andy Reid has now done it 3 times now. He's a 3-time winning Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame head coach. He's not there yet. In fact, his understudy Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl before him. I think he needs to. And I think he knows that as well. I think it's gone past, this black sheep, this unlucky, this can't win the big one. He needs to do it. And I think that's literally going to drive him. And I think when he wins it once, he might actually just go off in the sunset and just take a break from football coaching.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame him, to be honest. I mean, he's at a young enough age where he could just carry on, but also he could just have a year or 2 off. I think as well, you make a good point about John Madden, because we've seen Peyton Manning had that thing for a long time in his career before he eventually won with the Colts. Obviously, Jim Kelly couldn't get off his back, but think of Don Shula had it with who's at the Colts at one point, and then obviously lost the Super Bowl with Miami before then winning obviously back to back and doing one of them as an undefeated team. So I think it is often, and obviously you go back to football again. Man City was seen a long time as chokers. Then it took them to win that one Premier League where they scored with Aguero in the last minute, and now they're just unstoppable. And I think once you get that one, let's go back to the whole Curtis thing. There's once you get that one lift off your back, the mentality completely changes. You know how to win. And Jurgen Klopp had criticized for a long time not winning any finals, wins the Champions League, and then following year wins the Premier League, and then wins trophy after trophy. So, Oli, do you share Phil's sentiment, or is there anything you would sort of be worried about? Because you look about Kittle's not getting any younger, Samuel's not getting any younger, the Aiyuk situation, he could leave. Trent Williams, he may leave, he's holding out. There's a lot of old players in this team. It feels like it's almost, if it's not this year or next year, when will it be?
So I think that our Super Bowl window closes at the end of this year, because at the end of this year, Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Javarius Ward, and Lenore are all out of contract. And we have to pay Purdy next year. We can't pay Purdy and all 4 of those. There's just not enough money. I think we'll maybe keep 2 of those 4 if we're lucky. So I think this year is Super Bowl or bust, which is why I do everything to try and keep Aiyuk this season. I was just thinking about this, Phil. Imagine this. Kyle Shanahan wins the Super Bowl this year, goes into the center of the Superdome and whips a monkey off his back, just like Steve Young.
Oh my God, that'll be.
Oh yeah.
Oh, do you know what? Like that would be amazing because I think, like, and in fact, it was a while ago when I was reading Steve Young's autobiography where he was proud of that moment, but he regrets that moment because he didn't feel at the time like he felt at the time like he just had this. He was just living in the shadow of Joe Montana in San Francisco and winning 4 Super Bowls and all that kind of stuff. But then when in hindsight, he was like, well, I got trained under the 2 best head coaches, Bill Walsh and George Seifert. He learned from, at the time, the greatest quarterback who ever lived, Joe Montana. He had Hall of Fame players all around him, like your Jerry Rices, your Taylors, your Roger Craigs, all these amazing people to learn from, that he felt like he was quite petulant of him because that was his time. That time in the past wasn't his time. Now it's his time. And then, throughout the 90s, I think Steve Young was the best quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he won MVPs. He beat out the likes of Brett Favre, the catch too, Troy Aikman. And I think for like Kyle Shanahan, it's almost the equivalent because you just have to think of his family legacy. Like his dad won the Super Bowl being the offensive coordinator for the 49ers. His dad then left to go to Denver and won back-to-back Super Bowls as a head coach. Kyle's been put in this situation almost, I don't want to say nepotism because that's not fair on him, but like he's had all these great things just fall into his lap, these opportunities, and now he almost has to prove himself. So I think in that respect, the monkey on his back would be more significant than, say, Steve Young's, because this is his chance to be on that next level of, NFL coach Kyle Shanahan to Super Bowl winning head coach Kyle Shanahan.
I do think sometimes, especially this year, there have been times, and especially in the Super Bowl this year, there has been times when his play calling has been questionable.
Yes.
And for example, we have the best running back in football and not using him at all in the third quarter of multiple games this year.
Yeah.
Including the Super Bowl.
And I think that paranoia has done him over, in 3 Super Bowls now. Like that paranoia, and he becomes very conservative with his play calling. Yeah. Well, I say that I don't want to say conservative because that's not even the right word, because conservative would be handoffs. Like it would be like going, "Here you go, Christian, just run 5 yards." Like
it's almost it is like over aggressive.
Yeah, like wanting to put the game to bed instead of just using your gamesmanship, your coaching. Literally just run the clock down. But I don't know. I still, me personally, I thought last year was the bigger chance to win it as opposed to a couple of years prior with Jimmy. I genuinely thought last year was our best opportunity. Well, I went to Super Bowl thinking we could beat the Chiefs, and we have a horrible record against the Chiefs in modern times. But I went into it thinking Patrick hasn't been great all season. Kelsey is breaking down. Their offense has not been amazing, and yet, if you would have literally rated the players position by position, which I think we did on one of the shows, I still think the 49ers had the best offense, like the best team, and the best defense going into it. But the Chiefs pulled it out, and the Chiefs, congratulations and won. I still don't like them. I still hate Travis Kelce. I left him off my top 50 list for a reason. I just can't physically put him on a list. But I thought last year was our opportunity, and
you actually built a list, so you're doing better than one of our podcast members.
Who didn't do the list?
Somebody's list was exactly the same as the NFL's top 50 to top 100.
Oh my god! Can I guess?
I think you can probably guess whose it was. I was just going to say though, I was actually on this podcast's Super Bowl preview, and I was against you had a Chiefs fan on too, who was the most overconfident person I've ever met.
And he was proved right.
Yeah, but he thought they'd already won it.
Well, it's what you get when you you win all these titles. You're bound to get confident, and
he's probably already given them the Super Bowl for this year.
I mean, I wouldn't blame him. You've got the best quarterback, the best tight end of all time, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league, and Chris Jones. I think that it's for me. I can see why. I think if Miami were that good, I think I'd be cocky as well. I'm the most pessimistic fan you could ever think of, and even I'd be a bit cocky probably if one. And before we go on to win, loss or tie, you think Shanahan would have probably ran the ball more after what happened with the Falcons? You know, when he didn't run the ball on the few plays, and Matt Ryan gets sacked on the third down, and it goes out of field goal range. You think he'd have learned from that. You really do. So, makes you wonder. As Matt Letizia once said. Now, the final section is going to be our win-loss tie section, where each fan who comes on, if you aren't familiar at home, listen to this podcast, each fan comes on the podcast and predicts their team's record by going through each game and answering with a win-loss tie prediction. Now, as you boys are sort of two guests on this podcast, we're going to do alternate between games. So, we'll go to you first, Phyll, for your week 1, before Oli week 2, and then back and forth before we get to week 18. So, yeah, Phyll, week 1, you are at home against the Jets. Win, loss, or tie?
Usually, the 49ers start really sluggishly and have, they'll win one, lose a couple, win, and then they go on like this unbelievable undefeated streak. But, however, I think we beat the Jets at home comfortably.
Leonard Floyd to injure Aaron Rodgers again and end his career.
but honestly, Aaron hasn't played in well over a year now, so there's a lot of questions around there. They had a lot of players leave because they signed 1-year deals. They've brought some people in. I think question marks are now being put on Robert Saleh as a head coach. I don't know whether or not that is his play calling or just the team that he's inherited. He hasn't really had the same build as what he had with, the 49ers, where, even though I think D'Amico was a better DC than Saleh in hindsight now, looking back at how these teams fared. But I think there's so much pressure onto Saleh. And, Kyle has a good record against his proteges.
But McVay obviously won the big one, which, the end of the day, that's all that matters. Now, I'm not going to sit here condoning injuries, especially career-ending injuries, because I wouldn't do anyone.
Baby, you jerk.
This one time I condone it because it's the Jets, and anything to see the Jets lose, I'm for it. Not as much as the Bills, but the Jets certainly next on that list. Oli, week 2, you're on the road to the Vikings in a Sam Darnold Bowl.
Okay, so whether Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy starts, Sam Darnold isn't a top-level quarterback. If it's JJ McCarthy, it'll only be a second start. The defense will eat him alive, even though it's away from home. I can't see anything but us coming back from Minnesota with a W.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that Chiefs fan was overconfident? That was the most confident I've ever heard of. That was the most.
Plus, we owe the Vikings from last year too.
What happened last year?
We lost to them.
Did you? What was the score in that game?
We lost by just over a score.
Was it Josh Dobson? Insanity,
No,
because that was Thingy's last game. That was Cousins' last game before. Yeah, because the next game, because there was that running thing in the 49ers continuity that if you beat us, that one of their star players the following week got injured and missed the rest of the season, because there was a few instances where that happened. And again, Cousins played a really good game because they had a losing record, didn't they, as well?
Yeah.
They had we were undefeated at that point, and then they beat us. And then the following week,
the Browns had just beaten us.
Okay, all right. So
it was right in the middle of our 3-game loss slump that we had at the middle of the season.
Okay, I think that rings a bell now. I remember watching that actually.
It was prime time. I remember that.
Right. Yeah, I remember I was in America. So I remember watching that game at a decent time, not at 1 a.m.
I stayed up for it.
Well, I bet you glad you did that at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We mentioned McVay before. In week 3, you take on the Rams on the road. Phyll, win, loss or tie?
Win. Win. Levi South. We win.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Week 4, back with you, Oli. Home game against the Patriots.
Oh, we need to win this. I can't take OBH being victorious.
Yeah, we can't. We can't.
The third and long podcast derby. That is the. I definitely want to get you boys on that.
Especially after losing to Baltimore last season.
Yeah, I stayed up with Shane and watched it on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I was watching it.
That ruined my Christmas. Full on ruined my Christmas.
Mine too.
Well, I had the opposite. I had a great. We made the playoffs 15 minutes into Christmas Day. That was the best start.
I actually remember texting you about that game, Andy, on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, I forgot that. If I'm honest, my memory's not very
good.
And
then you text me. You text me the next day saying you couldn't do us a favor.
Yeah, at that point we were still battling for the number 1 seed, and then we ultimately crashed and fooled and ended up going out in the first round. Week 5 is back with you, Phyll. Another NFC West game. This one against the Cardinals at home.
Oh, we win. Sorry, I don't want to be that arrogant kind of like. The Cardinals haven't fixed any of their problems from last year. They haven't. Like I've looked at like a lot of like the NFC, because obviously if the 49ers can win the NFC West, obviously it puts us in good standing anyway. The Rams have gotten better in certain areas. I don't think when we come to Seattle later on anyway, but like the Cardinals are still the Cardinals. They haven't improved. And again, in recent times, we have a good record against them as well. So, I'm going to just arrogantly say that we're going to beat the Cardinals quite fittingly.
We mentioned the Seahawks. They're next up in week 6 for you, Oli, on the road.
So, Lumen Field is always not a hard place to go. But, I mean, I can't, we played so well there last year.
But this isn't... Yeah,
Geno Smith isn't all that. I can't see us losing.
Yeah, I was saying, this isn't the same era of the Seahawks that had the Legion of Boom, where that stadium you couldn't even hear. I was going to say, like with Russell Wilson and prime Pete Carroll, when you literally couldn't hear the commentary because the stadium was that loud. That has gone. That has long gone. It doesn't have the same atmosphere. And fight me, Seahawks fans, because it's true. I just think, yeah. Again, tough because Seattle games are always really, really close, but I agree with Baby.
I mean, Thanksgiving last year, eating turkey on Seattle's field, we outplayed them, and I think we'll outplay them again.
Fair enough. Well, week 7 is the rematch of the last Super Bowl we had, and you take on at home the Kansas City Chiefs. Phyll, win, loss or tie?
I think we lose this game.
Fair enough. It makes sense. I mean, you have to lose some point. 6-0 start. It'd be your first loss going 6-1. Yeah, I think that's totally fair enough. We
just don't have a good record against the Chiefs. The Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan rivalry, we don't. They seem to always have our number. In regular seasons, they steamroll us, and in the Super Bowls, it feels like we give them the game because we don't want to beat them. But yeah, even if it's at home, I can't see us beating the Chiefs.
I don't think it's even a rivalry at this point. I think a rivalry is only there if the other team actually wins a game. I think I think if you'd won a Super Bowl and lost a Super Bowl against them, I think then you could call that a rivalry. But I think at the moment you have to sort of, I view more, the Bengals and the Chiefs as a big rivalry because they battled out in big games. They both wanted to beat each other. And I think the Bills and Chiefs will be the same, but the Bills can't seem to beat the Chiefs in the big one. So, but speaking of can't beat good teams in the big one, Dallas Cowboys in week 8. Back with you, Oli.
Is this a home?
Yeah, it is a home. Yeah.
As it's a Levi's, I'm going to say win. If it was a Jerry's World, I might think we'd lose, especially considering we historically have a mid-season slump. But at Levi, I think we're steady this year, and we need to beat the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys.
Yeah. They've changed no one, and they can't beat good teams. I think they're basically NFC version of the Dolphins. Now, I think we could change that. I think with an extra receiver like Odell Beckham and again Johnny Smith in, we could change that. But I think right now we're both the exact same teams, both good. And when the weather suits us, when the stadium suits us, when it gets to the tough games against big teams, neither as all the Cowboys can win it. And I like the Cowboys. I think I don't hate them like most people, but I just don't think until Mike McCarthy's not there, I don't think they're going to ever win against good teams.
I agree with you. Mike McCarthy needs to go.
Yeah,
I think this could be his last year as well.
And they need to put that. They need to put their hand in their pocket for both CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. I think.
CeeDee Lamb definitely. Yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb has to be because he is one of the best receivers in the league. And as the late Claude used to say at AFTV, it's time to go for Mike McCarthy. So week 9 is a bye week, and then going into week 10, you're on the road, Raymond James Stadium, against the Buccaneers. Phyll, win, loss or tie?
Oh, we beat the Bucs.
Yeah, that is fair enough. Oli, back with you once again against Seattle, but this time at home.
I think it's a shock actually, and Seattle beat us.
Okay, I love that. That will be a shock, certainly, especially at home as well.
Yeah.
Now going back to you, Phyll. Week 12, you travel to the infamous, the famous, the legendary Lambeau Field as you take on the Packers and at the moment, the time of recording, the highest paid quarterback in history in Jordan Love, which is to me.
Packers lose against the 49ers. That's been a thing for a long time. That dates back to the days of Steve Young. That dates back to the days of Alex Smith. That dates back to the days of Colin Kaepernick and Jimmy Garoppolo. I think even if it's at Lambeau, I think the 49ers take it.
I remember it was a weekend of that amazing playoff stretch. We had the Bills against the Chiefs in 13 seconds. I remember watching on the Saturday, I was in London at Hippodrome Casino when the Packers took on the Niners in those horrible snowy conditions. I remember
the block punt.
Yes, that one. I remember there was these Packers fans who were very clearly glory hunters. You could tell they were glory hunters. They were being so cocky before the game, and then that game happens, and the smiles taken off their faces very quickly. It was really fun to see, and I like the Packers, but that was fun to see. Oli, back with you for week 13. You're going to Buffalo to take on the Bills.
I think Josh Allen balls out and we lose.
Okay, shout out to Dave Caproche and Charlie Nelson. They were on our Bills podcast just a few weeks ago. So do check that out. If you are a Bills fan, listen to this podcast. Do check out our Bills season preview. And then week 14 is a home game against the Chicago Bears. Back with you, Phyll. Win, loss or tie?
We beat the Bears.
Okay, that means you're 10-3 going into week 15 as you take on once again Sean McVay at home. Oli, win, loss or tie?
We don't lose to the Rams in the regular season unless we're not trying like we did last week of last year. But yeah, we win.
Okay, so then Phyll, careful of your answer here, by the way. You are definitely being watched on this one. Week 16, you're on the road to the Dolphins.
Did I not say that Kyle doesn't lose to his proteges?
Very good point.
And he already has an undefeated record against him. So I'm going to say 49ers.
Well, it looks like you're about to walk off to the stadium. It looks like you.
No, it's fine. I've inadvertently locked my wife outside. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she just like knocked on the window and pulled a funny face at me. Oh, thanks, love. I'm just live at the moment.
And it's live. Oli, week 17. Your final home game of the regular season, you take on the Detroit Lions in a repeat of the last year's NFC Championship.
So I think this is a dead rubber by this point. I think the Niners have already won the NFC West. I think the Lions have already won the NFC North. And I think it's a bit of a battle for number 1 seed in the NFC. And I think the Lions take it.
Okay. So that means week 18, back to you, Phyll. You get the extra game to predict. You're on the road to the Arizona Cardinals.
We win. Fair
enough. So that means that you end the season, according to yourselves, 13-4, which you would assume that would definitely win the division, maybe even the 1 seed. Extra question for you boys: if you go 13-4 and make the playoffs, how far are you going in the playoffs?
So since 2003, when the Niners have made the playoffs, they've made it to at least the championship game.
Wow.
But I think going all the way this year and we make it to the Super Bowl, but I'm not going to make a prediction about the Super Bowl.
Okay, for you, Ollie, extra prediction. If you make the Super Bowl, which team are you playing?
I think that we are playing the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, I love that. Those healthy. We've been healthy 2 seasons, albeit 2 out of 4. They've made at least the AFC Championship game. So yeah, I love that. And for me, as long as it's not the Chiefs and not the Bills or Jets or Pats, and I'm happy with whoever wins the AFC. Phyll, for you, how far are you going in the playoffs with that?
The 49ers have the most playoff victories in NFL history. A record that they clinched last year where they beat the Packers and then to equal it, and then they beat the Lions to actually surpass it. I think the 49ers, to agree, I still think they're the best team in the NFC. I think they get all the way to the Super Bowl. And I think in the Super Bowl, they'll play against the Las Vegas Raiders.
What?
With Minshew quarterback, not going to happen.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew the second will be quarterback, and it will be the 49ers wearing the red and gold against the silver and black of Las Vegas. I'm calling it now.
That is the hot take of the century. I don't think getting 7 wins, let alone making the Super Bowl. That's
I mean, you're talking to Phyll, who loves Minshew and loves the Raiders, so I'm not that surprised.
It's true. Minshew is my favorite non-49er player, and the Raiders are my second team. So it's like a dream come true.
Yeah, that's interesting. Favorite non-player for your team? I'd probably say Derrick Henry. What about you, Ollie? Who would you all be? Because that's
favorite. No. Do you know who I actually really like? This might put a bit of a dagger in your heart, Andy.
No, fair enough. I would be the same if he wasn't for the fact he's in the AFC East. I love watching him as a player. I just hate the fact that he does it against us, and beats us a division multiple times. But yeah, no, I can see why he is really exciting to watch. And I know he cares with the ball, but on his day when he's on it, it is quite a spectacle. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, no, I get that. But yeah, that is where we will end part 1 of our Niners season preview. So yeah, once again, boys, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us,
Andy. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. And don't forget to have a listen or watch of the Third and Long podcast if you haven't already. And let's head to part 2 with the great Oli Hope. And welcome back for part 2 of this 49ers season preview. And as you can see, as I mentioned, part 1, this part 2, I am with Oli Hope, returning to the show, a good friend of mine. Paul, how are things?
Thanks for having me, Andy. Whenever you send the bat signal out, I'm always good to jump on with you. As you've said, we've become firm friends off the field. We will definitely meet up in person, but
absolutely.
Get the pun in now, Andy. I'm feeling pretty confident ahead of this season.
Oh, so not pretty good, pretty confident this time. You changed the wording.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring a new one just for you, buddy, because I know if I don't say some kind of pun, it kind of jinxes myself. So I thought, right, I've used pretty good a few times, but we'll get into why I'm feeling confident, especially about my boy Brock, a little bit later, everybody.
Yeah, and we are going to get into, of course, the usual section at the end of the episode where each fan predicts their team's record by going through each game and answering with a win, loss, tie section. Before we go into all of that, before we go into even the 49ers season preview, yourself, last night had some very exciting news and a very exciting development. For those who don't know at home, tell them what happened to you last night.
Yeah, so I am the vice president of the 49er Faithful UK. We pride ourselves on being one of the biggest fan chapters in the UK scene of NFL fan chapters. And the CBS Bay Area reached out earlier in the week, Andy, and wanted little old me to be on their new fan show called the Red and Gold Fan Club. So I was joined by the awesome Steph Sanchez and a couple of other 49er fans. So it was very nervous knowing that their YouTube channel has 400,000 subscribers. It's going to be going live on CBS Bay Area tonight, 7:30 Pacific for them, and whatever time that is in the UK for us. But I'll be sharing the link. And it's just crazy to think 3-4 years ago, I started with an iPhone 8, Skype, doing the podcasts with the 49er Faithful UK. And then like you reach out to other content creators, other fan bases, and bringing it back to this. The reason I like doing your pods is I know you're not a Niners fan, and I do like to step out of that bubble of just talking to other 49ers. But yeah, it seems that people want to talk to me about football, Andy. And you know me, I love to talk all things 49ers.
Oh, you bet you do. I mean, you've been this podcast a fair few times before, and it's always, a very knowledgeable chat with yourself, and it's always, you've always got the insights, you've always got the scoops, you've always got the contacts. So yeah, it's really good seeing you smash it. And like I said before, yeah, we have to meet up at some point. It's a shame that our game is so close to Christmas, because I'd love to have met up for like a watch along. I know you're doing it with Brad for the Week 7 game, a friend of the show, our Chiefs fan, and I would love to have had that game like in a week 4, week 5, or even maybe the evening after a London game. Everyone comes down, and I think there'd have been a good opportunity there, and there still is maybe for another game in the future. For the 49ers Faithful UK and Fins Nation UK or Dolphin UK to meet up. And I think, yeah, obviously our chance was last year, of course, wasn't it? But the media went on too long, and it was just too far from the stadium to the event. And I think by the time I would have got there, it would have been probably late third quarter. And I missed out on meeting you, missed out meeting Rob Holding and Lee Gowland. But
and Joe Staley.
And who?
Joe Staley was with us last year, remember?
Yeah.
So you'd have met Joe Staley.
Yeah, he was there. It looked a really good event, but and I saw as well. I forgot that friend of the show Paul that came on for the Dallas Cowboys. He came to that as well, didn't he? He came on from Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover podcast.
He came. Yeah, he came to the Super Bowl meetup. So again, from doing shows like this, Paul's part of the Let's Talk Sports Network, Dallas Cowboys fan, and he's based in the Leeds area. So when he found out we were hosting a watch party for the Super Bowl, he was like, "Can I come?" And to be fair, he turned up at the pre-meet, Dallas Cowboys jersey on. Obviously, a lot of our fans had their F Dallas t-shirts on, but it was all good fun. And I think Paul's joining us for that Week 7 matchup that you mentioned with Brad and the Chiefs fans. I'm looking forward to that. I know we're digressing, but we normally do our own kind of watch parties just as the 49ers. So when Brad reached out and said, "Look, the Chiefs fans are meeting in Newcastle. I know you're based in Middlesbrough. Any chance you and a couple of guys can join us?" So I think at the moment, Andy, we've got about 65 NFL fans, mixture of Chiefs, 49ers, Lions, Cowboys. So it is going to be a good event, which obviously we'll promote closer at the time. And I'm just waiting from El Presidente, Mr. Gowland, to tell us if we're going to get an official watch party, because obviously that may sway your mind, because if it's local to where you are and you've got nothing on that week, you might think, "I'll come along." So
yeah, I mean, that's part of the issue why we've not met, is because we are just so far apart as location. I mean, when I first met you, I was living in Brighton, and then since then I moved back home to Wales, and I'm moving to Cardiff Bay next month. So yeah, always been just very far from your end. I mean, I know we had one time where I was down in Newcastle for my birthday, but yeah, it was a matter of just logistic-wise we just couldn't do it that day. But we will eventually, especially when they should at some point. I'm sure they'll come to London at some point in the next couple of years. I'm sure of it, because of their Leeds United and TalkSport connections. So you think that obviously that'd be a point where you would meet. And so yeah, I hope it can be soon, because yeah, it's something that we've been planning for years. It'll happen eventually. It will happen eventually. I'm so sure of it.
What'll be good when it happens? So the awesome foursome, we hadn't all met up in person because Gareth's based in Wales, Nadji's down in Manchester. Me and Lee are quite close, and Lee and Nadji only met in person for the first time when Lee went out to Vegas, to do the draft pick. He met Nadji in Vegas, and I remember meeting Nadji for the first time in Leeds at one of the watch parties, and we just embraced like long lost family members. And that'll be the same with me and you, because you talk on shows like this, and then you're connecting. Like you said, you drop me DMs, we're messaging about various other things. When you meet in person, you just automatically have that connection. So it will happen. And like you said, we will share it on social media. We have to coordinate, Andy, whether we'll both be wearing Steph Curry jerseys or whether we're wearing different jerseys.
I don't think we can both wear them. I think one has to make the sacrifice, and I mean, I'm happy to make the sacrifice. To be fair, I don't think I suit basketball jerseys. But yeah, no, we definitely have to try and find. I can even wear I got Steph Curry trainers, and maybe I'll look to wear those, and you can wear the jersey or something like that.
I mean, you were impressed with my Photoshop skills for when you came on the 49er Faithful UK. And it was you at the Golden Gate Bridge. It was me at the Golden Gate Bridge. And Wayne, who's our photographer, managed to put them together. And I remember you saying, that looks like we've met in person. It was a great photo. So we'll have to replicate that pose, Andy, anyway.
And of course, you were in San Fran last year. Any plans to go out this year?
No, Tracy's listening. All jokes aside, last year was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me. So the group have applied to be back in the gold mine, ironically, for the Chiefs game. We haven't heard back yet because I'm sure you've heard me mention Nick Clark, who was the fan engagement manager at the 49ers. He's just been promoted. So obviously we're waiting on his replacement, and he's normally who we go through. So what happens is all the various fan chapters around the world can apply for the gold mine. We only have 9 home games next year. So obviously each fan chapter gets allocated a game. And because we got one last year, it's not guaranteed we'll get one. But I've already said that I went last year. So my place is for someone else. And going to Disneyland Paris with a family in a couple of weeks and got other stuff planned that this year. I mean, I made it out last year. I can't complain, can Andy? Stanford game, exactly. 49ers game, Steph Curry and the Warriors. Whirlwind. Yeah, whirlwind of what I did in the Bay Area, but no, it won't be this year for me. I'm hoping for my next Niners game to be in London, as you've said, which would be pretty awesome, covering the team in London.
Yeah, I think as well, a lot easier to get to, isn't it? Like, that's why you see a lot of people, you think London games, you see people from all over the world. You see people from France, from Vienna, from Madrid, anything like that. It's you see people from all over the world, all over Europe, I should say, come to these games because it's so much easier to get a hour-long Eurostar to London from Paris. Or it's so much easier. So I know whenever I go to London games, you do meet a lot of Europeans that aren't. And actually, that's something you guys need with the interest you've got abroad in Europe. How about a 49ers faithful watch party in somewhere like Vienna, in somewhere like Madrid, somewhere like Germany? I think that could be maybe your next step in terms of the watch parties. Bring it to Europe.
I mean, we do have our German friends who run the equivalent of the 49er Faithful UK, obviously the part of ours. I think they're called the Niner Empire. They were out in the Bay Area when we were actually. So we were in the gold mine. They were outside tailgating. They managed to do the stadium tour before we got in there. And it was just weird when you're looking at the photos on the night thinking, they're at the same game as us. So I know if there was a 49ers watch party in Germany, it would be huge. And it's the same as, I'll give them a plug, the 49er Faithful Ireland. They've started their group. A few members were following us. They've then started their own WhatsApp group. So if you're based in Ireland, there's the 49er Faithful Irish group. So like you said, Andy, the NFL, it's global. It isn't just Europe. And for me in England, going to London, based in the northeast of England, I haven't made the trip down to the International Series game yet because it is expensive for me to travel down to London, and I am kind of waiting to do my first one with the Niners. But like you said, if there was a fixture that jumped off the page and I thought, right, I can go down and I can meet yourself, Brad, Matt Cullen, some of the other names that I've connected with recently that I kind of want to meet in person. So, but yeah, I'm not going to any of the London games at the moment. I'm kind of waiting to find out where the official watch party will be for the 49ers. I've got the Chiefs watch party and there will be more arranged. It's just difficult when you're a UK fan. You really need your team on Sky. So we've obviously took a punt with the Niners Chiefs because that'll be the Sky game. That'll be the 9:25, October the 20th. But for example, the Vikings game week 2, we're on at 6:00. I can't see that being the 6:00 game. So if you're not on Sky, arranging your own meetup, you're reliant on a sports bar allowing you to use Game Pass. If you don't have Game Pass, you just have to watch on Red Zone. And it isn't quite the same, Andy, without your team on the TV. It's pointless going, really. Unless your team is the main game, you might as well just stay at home.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's not always easy to find pubs that chill NFL. We know it's growing in the UK, but there's some pubs where it is hard. Sometimes I've been to some. I went to a sports bar in London once where they were showing Arsenal Tottenham, but they had a little screen which was showing the NFL. And I think if you got one of those bars with multiple screens, they can often cater to people, especially if you're in the booth next to that TV. You mentioned week 2 then, looking at the games at 6 o'clock when the Vikings are playing yourselves. You've got Saints, Cowboys, Lions, Bucks, Colts, Packers, Jets, Titans, Niners, Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots, Giants, Commanders, Chargers, Panthers, and Browns, Jags. So I'm thinking either Browns, Jags, Bucks, Lions, or Colts, Packers. Maybe Jets because of Rodgers, but I think those 3 games for me would be the ones I think they'd probably most likely choose.
They like to mix it up as well. I mean, I can't fault Sky. You know, they're not going to put the Niners on every week, and that's what you're saying. You're looking at the Niners Vikings game. When you look at our schedule, the Chiefs game's going to be on. The Niners Cowboys game, I know it's a prime time, but that'll be on Sky Sports. So you've got to look at the schedule. And I'm a fan of the NFL. If the Niners are on at 9 o'clock, I'm sat down at 6 o'clock. I'm watching Red Zone. I'm keeping an eye on Niners bye week. I'll be choosing another game. Tracy and the girls know from September, Andy, 6 p.m. on a Sunday, NFL Sunday, as it's called in our house. I'll be sat in front of the TV, Red Zone on until the Niners are on. And that's what we all love in the UK. And it's this community. And me and yourself will be messaging and other people on Twitter and Facebook. And it can be a lonely existence as an NFL fan in the UK. As you said, if you're going out to watch the games, we had it at the Bristol watch party a couple of years ago. We rocked up at the sports bar in Bristol, booked in. I think Man United were playing Chelsea. So as soon as we walked in the bar, we went to All Stars in Bristol.
Oh, you go there, did you? Oh, that's I used to live in Bristol. I used to hate that bar. I'm not gonna lie.
To be honest, it was after COVID. There'd been some criticism of the group that all the watch parties were in the north. So one of the members said, "Look, I know the sports bar." When we first walked in, I'm not going to lie, it was just full of English football fans, and I thought, this is terrible. I mean, our game wasn't until 9:25, but I wanted to watch Red Zone, and I think that game went into overtime, extra time. And then what happened was really strange. The pub emptied, and then the bar staff were like, "Oh, you guys are here to watch what? Like American football?" So I'll give them a shout out. They did put our game on Game Pass. It wasn't the Sky game, but we watched that game. It was a joint meet up with the Vikings UK group, but only a handful of them turned up. We outnumbered them by quite a lot. So that's what I'm saying. When you're arranging your own meetups in the UK, technically we tend to stick to casinos because we've got the late license. You can normally get your own room. But when I went out to America last year, and I went to watch, I think it was on the Monday before the Warriors game, we went into a sports bar there, and like you said, they've got the multiple screens and football on it. It just was a different atmosphere, and I was like, I can imagine this must be what it feels like to be an American every week, going into a sports bar at a decent time, having a few beers, watching the sport.
Yeah, that's what I loved when I was in America. Now, I am notoriously a morning person. It's why I watch primetime games at 5 or 6 in the morning, not knowing the result. And I remember, albeit I know it was West Coast, 8-hour difference. I remember my 3 month trip in America 2 years ago. My first stop was Seattle. I remember the first weekend I was at a game. It was Seahawks Falcons, and I couldn't believe it. I was watching NFL because the game was on about 9:25 UK time. But I remember thinking, like, I'm watching NFL Red Zone 10 a.m. This is like insane, and this is why I would love to one day generally go to Australia to watch Super Bowl, because they watch it at 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. That for me sounds so ideal. I love watching Super Bowl, but I'm terrible staying up. I have to. Actually, this year was different because I did actually get a power nap in at my girlfriend's about 6:30 till 8:30, 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock. Then I went down and met friends in Cardiff. But most years I'm watching it, I'm knackered by halftime. So for me, that's something I loved in America. The fact that I remember watching, it was Niners against, I want to say Niners Broncos. It was a week 3 or week 4 Sunday night football game when Jimmy Garoppolo did I think he went back for safety or something.
Yeah, it was a Broncos. We had a couple of members out at the game there. Yeah, that was, so one of my good friends, Andy Hodgson, he supports a ice hockey team based in Denver. So he timed it to go for that trip. And he spent quite a bit of money to go out. And I think it was a 10-7, 7-6. It was a horrific game where Jimmy stepped out the back. And obviously that ultimately cost us the game. And like you said, when you're out there in America, it was like us, the Buccaneers game. We got to Levi Stadium for 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so
It
good.
was, and like you said, we got back to Pier 39 at like 6 p.m. there, in America, and you're at the sports bar and you think, normally a 9:25 game, you'd be switching off and going to bed. But we were able to digest the game together. I mean, I say I have a few beers. I'm teetotal, but yeah, seeing it from the American point of view, because NFL to them is a daytime activity, and that's why I think they're so appreciative of our fandom. Like last night, the host Matt Lively on CBS, he was like, "What time are the games over there for you?" Because I was recording 1 p.m. their time yesterday. I was like, "Yeah, that's 9 p.m. where I am." I was like, "The Super Bowl didn't start till 11:30 p.m. and it finished at 5 a.m." And he was like, "You never miss a game." I was like, "Nope, I have random days off throughout the year. I stay up late." And I think they appreciate the fact that for us, NFL Sunday starts at 6 p.m. and it's a nightly adventure where for them, it normally you tailgate at 9 in the morning first, then it's a daytime activity, and then they get the rest of their evening to do what they want. So I think they're quite impressed by our fandom across the pond.
Absolutely. I think whenever I've been to any game, but I remember particularly being at a Buccaneers game with Buccaneers Ravens at Raymond James Stadium, and there was Ravens fans, and they heard. I asked them, "Can I get a photo, please?" I did that, and they heard my accent. They're like, "Are you from the UK?" And I go, "Yeah." And then it got talking, and I explained that I was going to 21 stadiums in 3 months. They just love the fact that Brits, whenever I've been to America, they always love it when Brits come to watch their sport, because it is, it's their sport. They've created it. It's their national sport as well. So when I think whether people from the UK or Germany or Ireland or Spain come over to, I think they make the effort to come over and watch their sport. I think they always love it. And yeah, I did enjoy watching the primetime game in Seattle or anywhere on the West Coast at 5:30 in the afternoon, not at 1 a.m.
The only thing that was weird for me, and I know it related to the Niners, is we finished. I remember when Lee Gowland put the itinerary together, and I remember thinking, what are we doing after the game? Because, me and you've joked, if I travelled down to Cardiff and we went to watch Cardiff play Middlesbrough, for example, in English football this year, and the game was the game was a 3, the game was a 3 o'clock kickoff, and after the game we'd probably go to the pub afterwards, but because America's so big, there was no plans to. I think literally the game finished, we kind of milled around the stadium, got some photographs, talked to some fans, then we got on like the equivalent of the tube. Then we went back because we were staying at Pier 39, which was quite a ride out from Santa Clara. Yeah, it was just a strange, because for me, I was like, is there no plan to do anything afterwards? And we were trying to maximize the time. So I think, like you said, and for us, the 49er Faithful UK, it isn't just an English group. Like you said, England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. We've got people from Sweden, Denmark, Germany. We're 49ers fans, and the fact that when we went out to the Buccaneers, we were represented by, Najee's French, Eric's Swedish, we had the Danish UK group join us. Eric at the time was living in Singapore, so he flew in from Singapore. So again, that story to our group was there was 40 of the 49er Faithful UK, but there was just such a wide range. We had a couple of Americans in the group, we had a couple of content creators, John Chapman, Ted Talks Ball joined us, and like I said, when I went on that show last night, it was like, what's your favourite memory of last year? And the other fans were talking about Super Bowl, Roan, the comeback against the Lions. And I was like, the Buccaneers game, it might sound insignificant to you guys. I said, but for me, dream come true, made the first trip out there, went to Levi Stadium, shared it with some of my best friends in the group. And it could only have been topped by the Super Bowl. And obviously we'll get into that in a moment. I am over it, Andy. I am over it.
Are you sure?
I mean, it's my third Super Bowl loss being a 49ers fan. And I'm confident that we will get one sooner rather than later. But I mean, the light came on in Leeds at 5 a.m. Tracy was with me. The girls were watching at home. I got a text off Kaylee, my 17-year-old stepdaughter, and she was hooked. She wasn't really a football fan, but she was watching the game at home, texting throughout, and their exact words were, "That was so exciting. I am watching football with you when the season starts." Jasmine, my 14-year-old stepdaughter, she's been easy to hook in. She's got the Kittle jersey, Kittle hoodie. She does fantasy football with me. And then obviously Tracy was there with me. Because I was sober, the lights came on, I kind of kicked into my kind of vice president of the Fighting NFL UK. We need to make sure everybody leaves here okay. There's going to be no trouble because it was 5 a.m. in Leeds. And I was gutted, but the walk back to the hotel, we were already in bullish mood. We were already right, we've gone toe-to-toe with arguably one of the best to play the game in Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to come on here and say he's not. Luck didn't go our way. Injuries didn't go our way. But when you think of the season we had, there's only the Chiefs fans who can come on and say, Andy, any other team would have swapped places with me and been right. If I could say to you now, Andy, right, your team's guaranteed to get the Super Bowl this season coming, but I can't tell you the outcome, you're going to take it. And that's why we love the NFL. There's only one fan base in August who's happy. The rest of us are looking at, right, that's what we want.
Yeah, and you say that's a good point, because you said earlier, it's my third Super Bowl loss I've seen as the Niners. I've seen the Dolphins play in just 3 playoff games my entire 14 years as a fan. We've not won any of them. So I would absolutely swap in a heartbeat, because I've never seen us win a playoff game, let alone even reach I've never seen us in a divisional round, never seen us in the AFC Championship game, or never seen us in a Super Bowl even win it. So for me, yeah, I look on and envy the fact that yourself and get to say, I've seen us lose 3 Super Bowls, because then on the other hand, maybe you could argue that maybe what you don't know doesn't kill you or doesn't hurt you. Is that the phrase? I'm so used to Liverpool games, I take defeats quite to heart, because I'm used to seeing us win trophies and all that kind of stuff. But with the Dolphins, I'm so used to seeing us not be good. It's sort of like nothing's really changed for me. Does that make any sense?
But being a Liverpool fan, before you said about winning the trophies, I mean, obviously I'm 44, so a little secret for the people at home. When I was a football fan, I was a Liverpool supporter. I grew up a Liverpool supporter. I was surrounded by Manchester United supporters. Now I grew up in the era of Beckham, Keane, Scholes. So imagine being a Liverpool fan then. And I think the Gerrard slip was what took me off from football altogether. So you're saying that now as Liverpool fan, I've seen them win trophies. But already I mentioned that and you're like thinking, yeah. So it took a while before you got there. And I think for me as a Niners fan, I was spoilt with my first year. I jumped on board with Kaepernick, who was over my shoulder for those watching on YouTube, Harbaugh. And I thought, this is great, Andy. I've picked a team in the NFL that's going to go to the Super Bowl every year. Then it was, Harbaugh left, Chip Kelly, Jim Tomsula, and I went through seasons of 2 and 14. And then Shanahan took over, and then you saw what he was trying to do, and it became competitive. And like you said, get to the second Super Bowl in my fandom, and I took that more. I enjoyed that more. We went up to Newcastle at the watch party against the Chiefs. And the outcome of that first one, I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. Because I think the fact that we were winning into the 4th quarter and the way it collapsed with the Tyreek Hill play, Jimmy overthrown Sanders, where this Super Bowl, the crushing feeling didn't come until in the extra time where Patrick Mahomes had to get that first down and he scrambled on a 4th and whatever. And I thought for a split second, Nick Bosa was going to get him here. And if we'd stopped him there, we'd have won the Super Bowl. But they got that. And I think there was about 20 seconds between that and them scoring the winning touchdown. So I didn't have that kind of sinking feeling where I did in the second loss, if that makes sense. Where I suppose the Chiefs fans were probably like us. It was toe-to-toe. And then all of a sudden, golden goal, knockout rule. They scored a touchdown. And then... But I haven't watched it back. I say I'm over it. I can't watch it back, mate. I can't.
No. I mean, I've not once watched back that Liverpool-Chelsea game in 2014. I refuse to, because it's the moment that's brought me in. Same thing applies to the final day of the season when City were losing to Villa 2-0. Gerrard was manager, Coutinho scored, it seemed meant to be, and then they scored those 3 goals in 6 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever it was. And those are 2 games, as well as Portugal-Wales in the Euro semi-final. They're just games. I think there's some games I just can't look back on. And if I'm honest, there's only really one Dolphins game I could think of the same thing, because, like I said before, I'm used to this being rubbish. I saw it being in one season making the playoffs before a couple of years ago, in the first 11 years of the fan, whatever it was. But that Titans game last year, I can't look back at that at all, because that game, if you'd won it, and especially in the lead we were in, it could have changed the season completely. So, yeah, that's one as well I just can't look back on at all, really. Let's move on to the Niners' ins and outs of the offseason. So I'm going to run through the ins and outs. The outs include the likes of Randy Gregory, Chase Young, Sam Darnold, Javon Kinlaw. Sebastian Joseph Day, Cleveland Ferrell, Arik Armstead, and Isaiah Oliver. You re-signed Juwan Jennings and also took in the likes of Yetur Gross-Matos, my 2020 draft crush, Leonard Floyd, Josh Dobbs, Rock Yassin, Jordan Elliott, Chris Hubbard, Logan Thomas. And then you drafted the likes of Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver 31st overall, cornerback Ronaldo Green, 64th overall, offensive tackle Dominic Pooney, 86th overall, to name a few. Other ones include Malik Mustafa, Isaiah Guerendo, Jacob Cowing, Jarrett Kingston, and Tatum Bethune. So for you, Paul, overall, and obviously going back to out as well, the big cloud hanging all over it completely is the Aiyuk and Williams situation. So, yeah, what's your take on the offseason as a whole?
Nothing surprised me. As a 49ers fan, it's been quite refreshing that we've had no quarterback controversy. Brock is QB1. He's healthy. Arik Armstead, I was a bit gutted to see from a fan point of view because he'd been a Niner for 9 years. He'd been everything you wanted on and off the field. But injuries had crept in, and being in the NFL, the best trait is availability. And he was injured last year. The team did ask him to take a pay cut. He decided not to. Obviously, he's gone to the Jaguars, and I think he's already on their injured reserve list. And I think the team have shown with Shanahan that they kind of do let the players go at the right time, if that makes sense. So, like you said, some of the replacements there, I'm excited for Collins, Leonard Floyd. You missed one, Devondre Campbell, defensive end. There's also, I'll butcher his name, Isaac Yiadom has been a bit of a sneaky, under the radar, bit of a journeyman cornerback. But for us last year, the defense slipped. So our offense was top 3, in my opinion. And I don't care who you support. You're only bashing the Niners if you say we're not. We were definitely in the top 3 of the offense. But we're used to an elite defense. Now, obviously, the coordinator took a lot of flack for that. He was one and done. Shanahan got rid of him. We've promoted within, and we've also brought in Staley, kind of as assistant head coach, head of the defense. And we're hoping that Brandon Staley can sprinkle his magic like he did at the Rams. And Jalen Ramsey was kind of that superstar that he moved around. We're hoping he's going to do the same with Lenore. And all the talks out of training camp, Andy, that's what's happening. So the defense needs to step up. So some of those pieces you've added in there. We need an edge rusher to step up on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Now, the reason Bosa wasn't as great last year, he had his own contract issues, and we didn't sign him until about 10 minutes before week 1 against the Steelers. And it showed. And watching Nick last year, he was still good, but he wasn't elite. And I think the defense as a whole, we dropped down to, I think, 26 overall against the run. And if you can't stop the run in the NFL, then what they're going to do is teams like the Lions showed in that NFC Championship game, they nearly had the perfect strategy. They ran on us, then they threw on us. And you know yourself, if you can stop the run and you force teams to throw on you, if you're not great in your secondary, and if you're not great in your cornerbacks. And our safeties last year, to Sean Gibson, he'd been a good servant that we brought in, but he's retired now. Malik Mustafa was a rookie you mentioned there. He's shining quite well in training camp. We've also got J.R. Brown, who was someone we drafted last year. He got thrown in against the Buccaneers when we were there, and he seems to be going from strength to strength. So I think we've got younger at key positions, and I think what you'll see is the defense will be a bit more structured. Obviously, you've got the best linebacker in the NFL with Fred Warner. I think you're going to see him come to his fore this year. And there was no additions that I was surprised at. Even the draft, Slick Ricky Pearsall at 31. A few fans were upset, Andy, because I wanted an offensive lineman. But Dominic Puny, who we took in the 4th round, you'll have heard me mention his name before. Brad Graham, who runs the SF Niners, he's an offensive lineman expert. He watches training camp. He's there. He's one of my go-to content creators. And he's been raving about Dominic Puny to the point where he said he could be ready to start on the offensive line. So Shanahan doesn't put stock in a 1st-round pick in the offensive line. He's a wide receiver at heart. If you know Kyle Shanahan, he was a wide receiver at college. It's why he's so tough on his wide receivers. But Pearsall's looking good. But again, when you're a fan of a team and you're watching training camp highlights and you see Pearsall doing his breakdowns and catching the ball, you're confident, aren't you? At this stage of the season, you think, right, I'm going to come on Andy Short tonight and I'm going to say, yes, Ricky Purcell's going to be the next great thing. And Isaac Guerrero, who was my draft crush, he was the only one that I got right on the mock draft. So I'm bigging that one up. He's injured at the moment, but he's a Kyle Shanahan kind of project. He just looks like he's going to be an absolute weapon. But at the moment, you look at the Niners, we didn't lose. As I say at the moment, we haven't lost Brandon Aiyuk yet, but you look at our starting offense, it's pretty much in place. Trent Williams will be back, Andy. The Trent Williams, before I let you get a word in, I know I'm talking a lot. Trent Williams, when he signed the 6-year deal, when you strip it down, it was always a 3-year deal because all the money was front loaded and all the guaranteed money was in the first 3 years. Now, I guess he hoped he'd have won a Super Bowl and he could have retired. And I think he's still in good health. I know he's 36, but he's still the best defensive lineman in football. And I think the issue at the moment is he's got another 3 years left on his deal, but he's got no guaranteed money. Now, I want to ask you something about this because your boys have set the scene. So I was quite surprised when I was refreshing Twitter for wide receiver contract talks a couple of days ago to see Tyreek Hill signs a new deal at the Dolphins. And I thought, I didn't even realize that was a contract. Now, when I looked at the fine print, you haven't added any more years on. You've just given him some more guaranteed money. So I think that's what the Niners will do with Williams. But that's what I wanted to ask your opinion on that, because it looks like basically you've paid him some more money. You've kept him happy, but you haven't kind of kicked that can down the road. You've not, added more void years on where cap hell comes in. So I thought that might be what the Niners might do with Williams.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, Tyreek Hill talked about it. I believe it was in the off season last season where he wants to retire in 2025. So and things may change. He may change his mind. He may want to carry on. But from what he said there, it sounds like this might be his last year in the NFL, which would be a shame because he's been such a big part of our offense. And I don't know whether he's doing that because, like with Williams, maybe he's planning on, and that's a big if, touch wood, because I don't see it happening. But if he were to win a Super Bowl this season, I could see him leaving there and then. But it's hard to leave if you love the sport. Like Tom Brady showed, it's hard to leave. If you love the sport that much. But I think as all players, you want to end on a high. Basically every player aspires to a Peyton Manning ending. That's what everyone aspires to have. At the end of the day, you don't want a career where you're struggling. Drew Brees, for example, had an unfortunate end to his career. It was COVID as well, but he was sort of Roethlisberger, the same thing. They were looking worse and worse, looking like more and more like mannequins as long as they were not on sort of statues. But I think Manning obviously was that as well. But if you
I was going to say Manning didn't win that Super Bowl. However, as you said, it's a strange one. But I did think when the Hill news dropped, I thought that's interesting because, I mean, obviously, I was smiling when you said that. I appreciate you're going to say the Niners aren't winning the Super Bowl this year. Yeah,
I meant us. I meant us.
Oh, right. I was going to say because for me, I'm sat here thinking it isn't all doom and gloom being a 49ers fan. Even if the Brandon Aiyuk situation isn't resolved, we've got all the leverage at the moment. We can play him on his 5th-year option and we can franchise tag him for the next 2 years. Now, Aiyuk, under the CBA agreement, he can't sit out, Andy. Now, there's the argument, do you want an unhappy player around the dressing room? But if he sulks and mourns and doesn't play at the top of his ability, if he does stay in San Francisco, he's only hurting his future value. Because you know yourself in the NFL, teams look at that kind of off the field character. And for us, do you get a player that's hungry, that knows that, right, maybe I have to stay this year, go and win a Super Bowl, then they'll let me go. And equally, we've seen in this wonderful sport of ours, I mean, Tyreek Hill, he left the Chiefs to go to the Dolphins. Now, I'm not saying it was a step down. However, he got his money. He already had a Super Bowl ring and he wanted to be the main man, where obviously in Kansas City, Mahomes is the main man. But even if Aiyuk was to go, you've still got George Kittle, you've still got Christian McCaffrey, Carl Chusek. I mean, the viewers of your show want me to come on and say, we've just signed Chosen Anderson, Robbie Anderson. There's your replacement. Bye, Brandon. We've got the chosen one. But all jokes aside, it's not as if we've only got Brandon Aiyuk in this offense. Now, if he stays, I'll be delighted. 1, because I've got his jersey. 2, because he's a favourite player of mine. And he's got that connection with Brock Purdy.
I don't know whether you saw as well, I don't know whether I can't think whether it was McCaffrey or Purdy, where they accidentally called Aiyuk a former teammate in an interview. I don't know
It was
whether you've seen it.
McCaffrey. Yeah, it was McCaffrey. I mean, Christian, I love McCaffrey. He's become my favourite player after George Kittle. George Kittle came back into my heart after that photo that you saw holding our flag.
I forgot to mention that must have been amazing. Him liking your photo. Was it? Did he retweet or just like it? I think it was just liking it, wasn't it? But
yeah. So the backstory to that, because while you were getting that up, so we've got obviously connections with content creators across the pond, and our good friend Ty Alston, he'd had Bruce and Emma Kittle on their show. Now, for those people that were non-Niners fans, the Kittle family have their own podcast called The Hidden Pearls. It's about a sense of community, lifestyle. And the short story is Ty Alston had mentioned the 49er Faithful UK, Club 85, where we all rocked up at that Bristol meet up in our 85 jerseys. And he told George about it. So for like the last 2 years, we've been arranging to get a flag to him. And the day of the flag, I'll share with you. El Presidente, Lee Gowland is the man who knows everything. He just lets me know when he needs to let me know. And it was a couple of weeks ago, Saturday morning, Andy. I'm out with Tracy, get a text on my phone. I'm going to send you something, Paul. You cannot tell a soul and you cannot share it until 6 p.m. UK time. Then the photo pops through of George with the flag. And I was like a kid on Christmas Eve. So I was sat at home. I had all the posts ready because I'm the social media manager. And at like a minute to 6, I thought this is going to be unbelievable. And like I said, George liked the tweet. His dad has since messaged and said, obviously, George has got the flag. And apparently he collects memorabilia from around his career and he puts it in his barn in Tennessee, in his workout barn. So our 49er Faithful UK flag is going, pride of place in there. And like you said, just shows where our group has come from to the fact that we've now had a photo where George has got the flag, Brock Purdy's got a photo with a flag. Obviously, Joe Staley was there last year. And you just have that sense of pride that they kind of reach out to the fan base and know who we are.
Yeah, I think it goes a long way because there are definitely some franchises where there's a lot of distance between the owners and the fans. I mean, I'm going to Hard Rock Stadium for the second time in October, and you can't get a stadium tour anywhere. I email the relevant people. You can't, and it's only open the shop in the stadium 3 days a week. So I think when you get connections like that, it's always obviously the Jags. Obviously, it's the one in the UK where you see a lot of stuff going on. Every year they get players down, but I think, yeah, stuff like that happening. Obviously, for guys so good as Kittle is, and obviously we've all seen on receiver just how lovable he is and how much of a great person he is. Definitely my favorite personality in the NFL besides Baker Mayfield. For me, yeah, that's an amazing thing, and I would love it one day if someone could bring out an across the pod flag and give it to either Derrick Henry or Jalen Waddle. That would be.
There you go. So give your idea. But no, I seen that interview with McCaffrey. I know I digressed. And he did call him a former teammate. The way I'm chuckling is doing these, I kind of sometimes get nervous, slip of the tongue. Now, to be fair to McCaffrey, he may be in the know. I mean, it isn't a secret. The Niners have said to Aiyuk and his agents, go and get a trade partner. You're not accepting our offer. They've allowed them to go seek a trade partner. But I've seen a few things on 49ers Twitter in the last few days where it seems to be that the Steelers think they can get Aiyuk on the cheap. This isn't a free agent. He hasn't got any leverage at the moment. He cannot sit out. So if he sits out this year, because of the way the contracts are decided, he loses this year. So the next year he's in the same boat. It's not like he can sit out for a year and then go on a Bosman in 12 months' time. Literally, he's got to play this year on his 5th year option. Then we can still franchise tag him. That was not ideal. As a 49ers fan, Andy, I wish we could pay everybody. It's one of the reasons we love the NFL. You've got that salary cap. You haven't got any Man Cities of the NFL who can come along and just negotiate $3 billion sponsorship deals and worry about the charges. There is obviously ways you can negotiate the salary cap, but as an NFL fan, you know you can't pay everybody. And I am kind of worrying for the day in the future. I know it's going to come. Brock Purdy's going to want his contract and other people want repaying. But as it stands today, we've got the pieces that I need for us to win the Super Bowl.
And speaking of which, that's actually a great segue into my next question. Of course, the Niners have been pretty much they have been, I think, the last 5 years overall pound for pound the best team in the NFC. You've made an NFC Championship game, you've made 2 Super Bowls, but you haven't yet got over that hump, and it's a thing that's constantly surrounding the head of Kyle Shanahan. We've had twice, particularly the first time around, a double-digit lead against the Chiefs. Can't think whether it was the same again this time around, but you had that lead in the fourth quarter in Miami, and you had the lead in the Super Bowl, the most recent one. And it's a constant thing that's getting put over Shanahan's head that he can't win the big one. Now, you guys will be once again, I'm sure, unless injury comes in, the fact that you will be once again one of the contenders for Super Bowl. If you're not in the NFC Championship game, something's going to horribly wrong. So you'll be one of the contenders. What do you think it will take for you guys to get over that hump and make a Super Bowl again and actually go on and win it? Is it just a matter of not playing the Chiefs, or is there where you can batter it?
I mean, I'm a Kyle Shanahan stan. I love Kyle. He's an offensive genius. A lot of the fans have put this on him. But as I said earlier, Andy, the Niners dropped from the number 1 to the number 10 ranking in defensive EPA play from 2022 to 2023. Now, I don't think it was all on Steve Wilkes' shoulders. I think it was a big ask for him coming in and replacing D'Amico Ryans, who again had a tough task replacing Robert Saleh. But there was something not quite right with the defense last year. The energy wasn't quite there. I mentioned it earlier, 26th in EPA against the run. In the modern NFL, yes, it's a passing league, but the reason it's a passing league is teams have to be prepared to stop the run and then pass the ball. But we were terrible against run. That Lions game, that first half, my good friend Andy Norton's a Lions fan. And I think it was more me being bullish and positive, as you know, at half time, text him, we're winning this one. The comeback's on. And then the first big play in the third quarter, he texted me, he was like, I hate you, Paul Hope. And then obviously the game went and we were joking on because, like you, he'd been a Lions fan for so long. He hadn't seen a playoff run. And he was just amazed that the Lions got to the championship game. They came close to beating us. So to answer your question, I'm excited to see the rehauled defensive line. We've deepened our secondary. Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. They impressed me more in the first Super Bowl. You mentioned it this time. You go, I haven't gone back and watched it, but there's a missed block on Chris Jones in overtime. If that block's picked up, does Brock Purdy find Brandon Aiyuk? We sat here talking as the Niners Super Bowl. It's fine margins. Neil Reynolds gets a lot of hate on social media, Andy, for the Niners because apparently he doesn't like the Niners. But Neil Reynolds last year and this year in Gridiron magazine, he's tipped the Niners to win. Now, he knows a lot more about football than I do. And like you said, you can't legislate for injuries, for luck. But for me, Kyle Shanahan just needs to keep doing what he's doing now. He's got the pieces around him. He's got his quarterback. Now, watching receiver, seeing Kittle, seeing Debo, I didn't realise, Andy, that Brock Purdy wasn't fully fit until November, December last year, which is scary to think the season Brock had. Now, a lot of non-Niners fans are going to be like, here he comes, Paul Hope, Brock Purdy's the best thing in the world. But the facts of the matter are, he did come into the season with an injury. He's put a bit of muscle on his frame. He's added a bit more zip to the ball. The interceptions in training camp, Andy, I never worry about that. Training camp practice is where you try stuff. A few years ago, 49ers Twitter was melting down because Jimmy G threw 5 interceptions. And then we went on the Super Bowl run because we had the best defense in the league. And Purdy's gone up. Iron sharpens iron. And Kyle Shanahan's put together a roster that can do it. I would like to see us play somebody else other than the Chiefs. So I can make that request now. It would be nice. But if we come up against them again, like I said, we weren't a million miles away. It wasn't like we went to, the Rams played the Patriots a few years ago and the Patriots held them to 3 points and shut them out. It wasn't that kind of Super Bowl. It was 2 heavyweights went toe-to-toe. Patrick Mahomes showed out at the end. So, but I'm confident that if we played them again, we have the game plan this time to beat them.
Yeah, I reckon so. And quickly, before we go on to the win-loss tie section, McCaffrey came to yourselves with a lot of history of injury problems, has basically avoided it the entire time he's been with the Niners. But less than a month after being announced on the Madden cover, he has a calf strain and he's missing the entire preseason. that could be just that and that's it, but it could lead on to the season itself. Are you worried about the Madden Curse?
And you love the Madden Curse. You message me about this all the time. And to be fair, yeah, I have seen it. I am a little bit superstitious, which drives Tracy a bit crazy. But to be fair, the amount of usage that Christian McCaffrey got last year, and if you follow Christian on social media, he's a beast off the field. He's a bit like George Kittle, the work all year round. So maybe getting the injuries out the way now would be a good thing. Shanahan did overuse McCaffrey last year, but behind him, Mitchell is proven to be injury prone. There was questions on Jordan Mason, but Jordan Mason's been working on his catching abilities, which is important in our system. Obviously, Matt Breida has been brought back in. Now, I'm not going to say Matt Breida is going to be a world beater again, but he knows the Shanahan system. And what we need to do this year is take some of the workload off McCaffrey. As you've said, as a fantasy football fan, I knew how good McCaffrey was at the Panthers, but I didn't think he'd get to. He's added levels to his game. He's the number one running back in the NFL, and it isn't just for running the ball. It can go into the slot, it can go into the X, what he puts in the blocking game. So I don't think there's a Madden Curse. I think I texted you, or if it wasn't you, it was someone else. The Madden Curse was broken by Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes because they both featured on the cover and they've won the Super Bowl. So maybe Christian McCaffrey's going to follow in that suit, but injuries at any time of the year, Andy, are a worry. We've had a couple of niggly ones at training camp, but I'd rather get them out of the way now. And McCaffrey was never playing in these preseason games. No. Kyle Shanahan doesn't like the preseason games. He prefers the joint practices. So this year we're playing the joint practices against the Saints. And he's already said, I mean, cheeky plug, it's my 44th birthday on Saturday. Tracy's horror when she saw the 49ers were playing football at 1 a.m. against the Tennessee Titans, but I never stay up for the preseason games because it doesn't matter about the score. What I'm looking for in the preseason games is some of those people on the cusp of the bubble. How are they playing? So like you, I'm a morning person, so I can wake up on Sunday morning, let Tracy have a lie in, put on Game Pass, watch the game back and look for the things that I'm looking for. I don't care about the result. I want to see what the system looks like, what certain players play like. But no, to answer your question, I'm not worried about the Madden Curse.
I don't really pay attention to the preseason either. I will watch, the games, particularly Dolphins games. We're playing the Falcons on Friday night, so I think it's midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to be watching that Saturday morning and doing that. And I think as well for me, I'm actually going to watch the Chiefs game because of Reece Dammit. Welsh in the NFL, and I'm sure he'll get some snaps in preseason. That's something I don't really watch other games. I think the first week I tend to watch games because it's been so long without football games. Just to see any sort of NFL action, I always love. But after that first week ends, it's almost like after that first round of the draft ends, your interest wanes a little bit in the later rounds. And I certainly won't be watching anything but Dolphins games and Reece Dammit snaps, I think, in preseason because in the day, half the players, if not 2/3 of the players playing in preseason, don't play much in the regular season. In the end, who really cares? Most of them don't even make the real active roster. So, that's going to be something I'll keep an eye on. But, I don't really care about whether we win or lose because it means, same as our football, it means absolutely nothing. But we are going to head to our win-loss tie section. So, Paul, you came on last year as well as the year before that. Last year, the Niners went 12-5. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was for the Niners back then?
Yeah, mine was 13-4. I was very bullish last year.
I got down as 14-3.
That doesn't surprise me. No, it was probably 14-3 or 13-4. I was at this stage of the season. I have played properly again, and I have looked. I'm not just going to come on and say we're going undefeated, which as a Dolphins fan, you'll be delighted because I know that's the one thing that Dolphins fans like to write. No one's going to steal our record.
It's one thing you've got.
So we were 12-5 last year, so I got that one wrong. But the year before, I'd said 14-3, and I was right. So I tended to stick to that. But no, it was 12-5. But we were the number one seed in the NFC, so I was quite happy with that.
And you were also the most optimistic fan out of all 32 teams that came on, all the fans that came on to do these predictions on our show. You were the leader in terms of the most optimistic. I mean, you had second most was Ash in the NFL. She had 13-3-1. You had Charlie, our Bills fan, 13-4. Rory, 13-4. Steve, 13-4, Eagles fan. But you were clear on top with your 14-3 prediction. So maybe it'll be more of the same this year. So week 1, you do have the home game against the New York Jets. Win, loss, or tie?
Got to go for a win on this one because we're playing against Aaron Rodgers in prime time, and my good friend Simon Friskney will be making the journey across the pond.
Nice.
So we've got to win for Simon. We can't have a Niners loss, and it's Frank Gore's getting enshrined in the Niners Hall of Fame that game. So I think prime time, Monday Night Football, which is Tuesday morning for us. So we're winning that one.
Yeah, I think Rodgers will be rusty. I think from a year out. Yeah, and at home as well. I think that's a good prediction. Week 2, you're on the road to the Minnesota Vikings.
We lost this one last year. It was a prime time game. The Vikings are a pesky kind of customer, for want of a better word. I'm hoping this is the official watch party, so I'm going to go for a win again. However, if it is the official watch party, we might have to chart this one as a loss because we don't tend to do very well when we watch all together. But as for this show, we're going for a win. So we're going 2-0 at the moment.
Yeah, I think especially if it's in Leeds, you're going to have to, that's a lock for loss, I think, if you're watching it in Leeds.
They did win the championship game against the Lions. I couldn't make that watch party, but yeah, the Leeds connection is, I can understand it with the Niners owning Leeds, and it must be easy, they can pick up the phone. Leeds, that's where we hosted the Super Bowl watch party at the Hospitality Suite across the road, to Century Room, or it's basically right across the road from Ellen Road, and it's amazing. So I have those kind of facilities, but for our members who were travelling up from Brighton, Southampton, London, if they hear the word Leeds again, I don't know. So maybe it'll be somewhere different this year, Andy.
Hopefully Bristol, because then I'll be very close to you, literally a half an hour train away. Hopefully you'll
could be Wales. We could have. I know when we used to do our own, we used to move them around. So when it was the 49 Faithful UK, we'd say right. And there was talk in the past of going over to Ireland. There was talk of going to Wales. So if it's further south, buddy, I will let you know. Hopefully you can join us.
Please do. Week 3, you're on the road to the LA Rams.
Divisional game. I think the Rams have drafted well. I think they're a lot stronger than people give them credit for in the 49ers fan base. Even though it's technically a home game for us, looking at this one, I didn't just want to come in and go win, win, win. This one I've got circled on the calendar. It could be our first loss of the season. So for this exercise, I'm going to say that the Rams get some revenge on the 49ers and they take this one to loss for us on the road.
Okay, so week 4, you go at home against the New England Patriots.
It's not the same Patriots. This one's very easy. It's a win for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think personally they'll be in the 3 or probably 2 worst teams in the conference. I think them and the Broncos for me will be the worst 2 teams, and I think it's for me it's not even close. And I think they'll have a rookie head coach and rookie quarterback. There's a reason why only last year was the first time ever a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback made the playoffs in their rookie years. So there's a reason why no one's done it before, because it's a bloody hard thing to do. So yeah, that is it's not a shock. Week 5. You're at home against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I say this one as a win. I know the Cardinals are in a bit of a rebuild mode. I know Kyler Murray sorted his future out, for want of a better word, and Glennon is doing decent things there because obviously I keep an eye on all things NFC West. But we seem to have the Cardinals number, so I've got this one down as a 49ers win.
Okay, so week 6 is a road game at Lumen Field against your favourite team, the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, the Seahawks just be the bane of my life. Again, they've got a new head coach. It's unsure how it'll go. I'm going to say the Niners win this one, but I think it could be a lot closer. It could be like a bit of a nail biter, but I think we win this one.
We're on to week 7. You'll meet up with Brad and the Chiefs fans. You're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of last season's Super Bowl against the Chiefs at home.
Yeah, I hope Brad isn't too smug when I meet up with him in Newcastle. I mean, even if the Niners win this one, they've still got the bragging rights. I'm looking forward to a good game. Last time we played them in the regular season, Patrick Mahomes came to Levi's and put on an absolute clinic. Now, it was quite impressive to see. This could be the gold mine game. So I'm going to say we win this one just because that's the fan in me. And equally, it makes Newcastle more entertaining if we win. But yeah, I'm going to put my neck on the line and say we win this one.
So we had in week 6 your biggest rivals, but in week 8 you're playing at home one of the Niners' traditional rivals in the Cowboys, win, loss or tie.
Oh, we always beat the Cowboys, don't we? So my good friend Chris Pollard, who will be listening, he's a Cowboys fan. When I first got into the NFL, I remember the Cowboys come to Levi's, Zeke Elliott, Dak Prescott. They smashed us all over. And ever since then, when Shanahan's come along, every time we've played the Cowboys, we've tended to have their number. So as a Niners fan, yes, they are traditionally our biggest rivals. I'm never going to say a Cowboys win. So it's a 49ers victory on this one.
Love that. So week 9 is a bye week. So week 10, you're on the road to the Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers were better than people gave them credit for last year. Baker Mayfield, similar to you, I don't dislike the lad. I think he's pretty entertaining off the field. But for the interest of this exercise, I think we beat these ones as well. And purely because my good friend Brett Sinclair is travelling out to this game. So I know it's at Tampa Bay, but he's going out to this game. So I've got to give Brett a win because he'll never forgive me if I say otherwise.
Just about that, I've just literally, my phone's just come up on Sleeper telling me that in the Olympics right now, this has been recorded on August the 8th, maybe released on the Sunday or Monday, but the USA are losing by 13 points at the start of the fourth quarter to Serbia in the Olympic semi-final. Now, it's currently looking at, now just turn on my iPad, just have on in the background there, 76-63 down at the start of the fourth quarter. And this would be the team they've got as well. It'd be an awful shock if they were to lose this.
It would, but it's yeah. I mean, they beat them in the group stages, didn't they? But again, this is knockout football, so similar to like what we were saying about the Chiefs and the Niners regular season. The Chiefs probably won't be that bothered if they lose to us in the regular season because it comes to the playoffs. It's kind of like who's got your number. But don't worry, Andy. Steph Curry will pull this one out the bag.
Well, he's been pretty not done a lot really. He had one moment in the Olympics against South Sudan, but he's been pretty quiet really in the Olympics. But I remember as well the year the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. The Saints beat them twice in the regular season. They won the division as well in the NFC South. You know, Brady's first game, the Saints absolutely obliterated the Buccaneers, and they beat them again second round. But comes to the playoffs, the Buccaneers eased past the Saints. So yeah, it's just proof again that you can't take the regular season results really too seriously. So, week 11 is a home to the Seahawks.
Well, I said that we won away. I can't see us beating the Seahawks twice this season with their head coach. So I'm going to put this one down as a Seahawks win. So that'll be our second loss of the season.
That will be. So you'll be 8-2 going into your week 12 game when you travel to the infamous, the famous, the legendary Lambeau Field against the Packers.
Yeah, I do like the Green Bay Packers. You'll have probably seen that I've started coaching myself now. So I coach at the Cadets for Dalton Steam. There's a lot of Packers fans there. So the banter has already started with a couple of the players there. You know, they're at 10, 11, 12. They turn up for training with the Packers gear on. Obviously, I rock my Niners gear. Jordan Love impressed me last year. I'm probably going to surprise a few people here. I think that this could be revenge for the Packers. I think we could lose this one. So we go 8-3. We could go on a 2-game losing streak. And I think the 49ers Twitter goes into meltdown, even though we're still going to be sat at the top of our division. But I wasn't going to come on here and just go win. Maybe wrong. It's August the 8th, as you said. We're doing this a bit of fun. But as it stands at the moment, I could see us losing that one in Lambeau Field.
He had a 3-game losing streak last season, and now it's the social media meltdown. And then you go on and obviously make the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's almost good to get done this time of year. You get it done middle of the season, or the second 2/3 of the season gone. Get it done then, because I think what you want is to go into form down the stretch. I think if you start getting wins in week 30, week 14, so on and so on, I think that'll be completely forgotten about those few losses. But and you mentioned bane of your life. Now, you're playing the bane of my life in week 13, the Buffalo Bills on the road. Now, I said this in part 1, please win this game. I beg you.
So when you said part 1, I'm guessing you've had another Niners fan on. So you're doing...
Yeah, we had Oli and Phyll from Third and Long came on.
Yeah, good friends of Oli. He's part of the 49 Faithful UK.
That's right.
So big
yeah.
fans of what they're doing. So there is plans to get them on our show. I know you've been kind enough to come on our show. So yeah, the Bills, responsible for us drafting Trey Lance, because I remember a game a few years ago where Josh Allen absolutely tore us apart. And I think Kyle Shanahan decided that's what he wanted in his quarterback. And I think that's what he saw with the infamous Trey Lance. Got to get that in there, because I was on your show saying he was the future a few years ago. I think we beat the Bills. I think they've lost some key pieces. As much as Allen is still great, I think we win this one, especially coming off the back of a 2-game losing streak. Like you said, we can't go into a 3rd-game losing streak in December. So I think we win this one. It's a primetime game. So I think we always tend to do well in prime time. So I have us that winning this one.
Okay, so week 14 is a team that we had on just a few episodes ago. You're at home to the Chicago Bears.
Yeah. Number 1 draft pick. A lot of hype about Williams. Good friend Andy, who's a Bears fan, is very bullish at the moment. He's very confident, which I've not seen him like that for some time. But I think we win this one. As much as I don't think Williams is going to be a bust, I just think, as you said before, rookie quarterbacks in this league going up against seasoned professionals, defensive coordinators. I think we beat the Bears on this one.
So week 15, you take on at home the LA Rams.
Yep. So I predicted a loss at SoFi. So again, I don't see us sweeping the division this year, but I think we go 1-1 with the Rams. So I think we win this one to tie the series.
Okay, so that means you are 11-3. Is that 11-3? Apologies. It is 11-3 going into your week 16 game, the most important one of the season. You travel to Miami, as Will Smith once said, to take on the Dolphins.
So if we don't meet in person, it's a 9:25 game. I can see a Zoom call, me and Andy watching the game together.
I love that so much.
We can go through the emotions. This is, to be honest, this has been circled on my calendar because our friendship. We've played each other a couple of times. I mean, the last time we played, you scored a touchdown after about 11 seconds. And I thought, bloody hell. I think Tracy was bringing me a cup of tea from the kitchen. And by the time she'd walked in, I was throwing the hat at the TV. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. She's like, you're losing already. I was like, yes, we're losing already. However, I think we win this one, Andy. I'm being very confident. I know you're a friend of mine, but I think the Niners beat the Dolphins on this one.
Oh, that's not what I wanted to hear. But to be fair, though, recent history, last couple of years, suggests that we can't win games past December the 1st. So I wouldn't be shocked at that point, week 16, because with the McDaniel era especially, we just can't win games late on, especially against good teams.
Should be a great game. Obviously, the connection with McDaniels, obviously Shanahan, obviously, you've got the running back, Mostert, he was a favourite of mine. And there's all that kind of, the offenses are very similar. It should be a high-powered game. It should be a bit of a shootout. It's one that I'm looking forward to. And the fact that it's not on Christmas Day, it's not on Christmas Eve, gets me brownie points in my house. So yeah, December the 22nd. If we're not at a watch party, we'll have a Zoom call and we'll watch it together, buddy.
That is happening. Whether it's in person or on Zoom, we're making it happen because it's got to happen. Because it's especially if my girlfriend's on nights as well, then it's going to be a free house as well, so I can make as much noise as I can.
Yeah, I'll be downstairs, so my background won't be quite as good as this. But yeah, to be fair to Tracy with the 9:25 games, I mean, like I said, my girl's 17 and 14, so it's not like I have to be too quiet. And maybe I'll have a couple of them sat with me because, like I said, Kaylee definitely got into it last year, and she's got the poster up on her wall. She still rocks a nice jumper for college, so she hasn't given up just yet, buddy.
How would you react to it? Say your girls go up to you and go, like, Dad, I love the NFL. I want to be a Seahawks fan. How would you react to that?
They've already been told they're not allowed to be a Seahawks fan. And in the run-up to the Super Bowl, they're both massive Swifties. And it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'd banned Taylor Swift in our house in the run-up to the Super Bowl. And one night they were playing Taylor Swift as I was about to go on a pod. And I said, if you don't stop it, I'm going to name and shame you. And they were both chuckling because I pointed to the camera and I was like, Kaylee, Jasmine, this is for you. Taylor Swift is banned. So it could be worse. There could be Chiefs fans, I suppose, with Kelsey, 87 jerseys rocking around. But I did say to them, all jokes aside, they could pick any team they wanted, apart from the Seattle Seahawks. But they've both decided to stay Niner, keeping my good books.
Right. Love that. I love that a lot. I really do. Week 17, your final home game of the regular season, you host the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I like the Lions. I like what Dan Campbell's doing. I think at this point we may have already secured the #1 seed, and I think the Lions get a bit of revenge on us for last year. So I'll give this one to the Lions.
Okay, so then finally you go into week 18 with a road game against the Arizona Cardinals.
This will be the Joshua Dobbs game for the ages because we'll already be in the playoffs. Brock Purdy will be rested and Dobbs will throw 5 touchdowns and there'll be a quarterback controversy. But all jokes aside, I think the Cardinals season will be well over by then. So I think it'll be kind of a meaningless game. I think we win this one.
Okay, so that means you first of all have the same record prediction as our part 1 guests, Phyll and Oli. You've gone for 13-4 as well. So that gets you into the playoffs. So obviously, you get to the playoffs 13-4. How far are you going?
I think we're winning it this year. I think Kansas City rode the luck last year, as did we. I think a knock on Kyle Shanahan, Andy, was, you said earlier, can he get over the hump? Well, he proved that last year. The Packers, you remember the game before the Lions, the Packers were beating us and we had to, Brock Purdy had to put the team on his back, which people said he couldn't do. The Lions, that deficit at half-time, a knock on Kyle Shanahan was if his team are losing at half-time in the playoffs, he doesn't come back. So I think we're battle-tested. I think we've got the culture. We've got the pieces that we need. And like you said, all things going well. I think the Niners win it this year. I think this is the year I can finally celebrate a 49ers Super Bowl win.
Joe, you are actually, unless I've got it wrong, you are the first guest. Oh, no, you are our second guest to predict your team to win the Super Bowl. So
who was the first? Who was the first? Brad?
Bills. It was Buffalo Bills fan David Roche. So, you're in a very small company so far, but we've yet to have the Chiefs, yet to have the Lions. So, could be different then. And
you're not surprised. You know me. You know I wasn't going to come on here and say anything else other than that because I know you're very good at clipping the sound bites and I know you're good on TikTok better than me. But honestly, at this stage, I'm feeling pretty confident. As I said at the start, I haven't seen anything in training camp. I haven't seen anything around the league that makes me worried. I still think we're the best team in the NFC. Obviously, the AFC at the moment, you see, you've got the Chiefs. I don't know whether they'll make it back. I'm hoping that they've had enough now, Andy. Just let somebody else have a go.
Yeah.
You've had enough.
I'll also, though, the only way I'll allow it is if Reece Zammit catches a winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. That's the only way I would allow seeing a Chiefs win because there'll be a little bit of home pride.
I'm excited to see what he does. I wouldn't say I'm a massive rugby fan. I like the Lions.
No.
I get the Lions jerseys. I knew who he was. I've watched from afar. I didn't like the other day when he was doing some pass blocking and people were kind of quick to jump on. He's not doing it very well. But he's never had to do it before.
No, exactly. Yeah.
I turned my hand at flag football and I'm not comparing myself to an elite athlete, but getting to grips with the playbook at flag football and learning the routes and doing stuff that I'd never done before. I'd come from 20 odd years of playing 11-a-side English football, 5-a-side to suddenly get my head around the language, the lingo. And he's an elite athlete. And if anyone can succeed at the Chiefs, it'll be him. And I think they may use him as an offensive weapon. I think he might come to his own in the new kickoff rules.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to see. I think you're going to see him because with the way they're lining that up now, you just have to beat one man and be gone. And he's electric, isn't he? And speed kills, as Tyreek Hill shows, whatever level of the NFL you play.
Exactly. I think he's in the best coaching system, playing for the best quarterback, an offense that often splits reps between their wide receivers. I think, he's in the perfect spot. I think if he'd gone to the Broncos, he would have probably crashed and burned right there. Well, I said before, there's a 14-point game. It's now a 2-point game in the basketball with 4 minutes left. So it's, exciting stuff. But that is where we will end the podcast for today, part 2 of our San Francisco 49ers season preview. So once again, as always, huge thanks to Paul for coming on.
No, thank you for having me on, Andy. Tracy knows you're a big friend of mine. It was her birthday yesterday, so I cancelled our show yesterday. Thank you very much, buddy. But I did say, Andy wants me to jump on, and she was like, that's absolutely fine. And as I've said before, I'm always happy to share the links to your show. I don't point people in the direction of shows that I don't listen to. Yours is on my list. I love to watch what you're doing. I love to see that you're smashing it as well with the stuff you're doing. You were covering the flag football. You're kind enough to give me the time of day. And I know if I ever need someone on the show, you came on with us, 49 Faithful UK. We had an absolute blast. And I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards in our community and say, it's good to see other people other than Niners fans. So we will get you back on, maybe in the run up to that Dolphins game. That could be a great
please
live.
do, yeah. I am awful. Whenever you need me, you know where I am.
Thanks, buddy.
Great stuff. And that is our podcast. So this has been the San Francisco 49ers season preview. We'll be back for our next season preview, which should be Denver Broncos. See you then.